My mother, Hammoud, she immigrated here in 1974 when she was 4 years old. She was born initially in Lebanon, in the southern villages of Lebanon. And the year before the Lebanese Civil War started in 75 and 76, my grandfather immigrated his whole family over to Dearborn. And they actually moved to the south end of Dearborn, living in some of the apartments that were down there. When they first arrived here, my grandfather struggled to find work. He actually ended up finding a job at one of the local bakeries where he earned about $50 a week. And that was kind of his pastime until he landed a job at the Big Three, where he worked on the line over at GM. And then from there, my family, they moved over to the East End. My mother went to Dearborn Public Schools and eventually met my father in '84. My father's family story is slightly different. My father, born and raised in Lebanon, immigrated here in 1982, 1983 when he was about 23 years old. He came over here with his brothers, not with his parents initially, and his cousins. And when he came over, my father used to work construction overseas. And when he came over here, him and his brothers first found jobs at local gas stations. And from there, he waited until he got a job as a truck driver, where he used to deliver steel for the autos. My father, when he first came over in his mid-20s, and he came with his cousins, all of them lived in a single apartment unit. And he used to tell me how none of them knew how to cook, except for my uncle. He only knew how to cook one meal, lima beans, and that they ate that meal every single day until they started getting married. And eventually it was down to just a few of them in the household. But living on little to nothing, they actually grew vegetables in the backyard, and that's what they kind of used as their food source for a lot of the time. It wasn't until they were able to, most of them, find jobs within the autos that they're able to attain a steady salary and a steady income, and can then kind of try to live out the American dream. And that's where he met my mother, after a few years, and then, the rest of the story kind of unfolded from there.
Some of Dearborn's newest residents found that public education was sometimes key to helping them feel at home here.
The struggle that my mother talks about was, the surrounding community initially understanding the Arab American and the Muslim American culture, or the Arab culture and the Muslim culture. My mother, when she first went to middle school, and she used to observe the hijab, the teachers at that time weren't really aware of the hijab. And she remembers being ridiculed and being asked to take off the hijab when she went into gym class, although that was against the tradition. And so it was, bringing in the local imam at the time to come in and speak with the administration to explain to them what the hijab was, its significance and its role, and so on and so forth.
Many immigrant families believe it's important to find a way to keep the customs from their homeland alive.
In my household, my father and my mother made it a point to want to bring us up in the Arab culture and within the Muslim culture. My uncle happens to be an imam as well here within the Dearborn community. And so we grew up in a very faithful household that stayed true to the traditions of the Muslim culture and the Arab culture. Within the household, we spoke both languages, but primarily we spoke the Arabic language at home. And that was my father's way of trying to instill that within his children.